Hi everyone, welcome to Buckle Up Podcast. I'm Natalia Earle and I'm a certified business and life coach that loves talking to people. I'm fascinated by humans and how our brain works. What is it that makes a decision good or bad, and how does that decision ultimately shape our path and destiny? Everyone loves to talk about success, but what about the flip side? How about adversity? Failure is such a big and often necessary part of life, and it's simply unavoidable. So I invite you to join me on this inspiring, honest, unpolished interview show with breathtakingly real conversations that go deep on setbacks and hardships that are part of the puzzle that ultimately lead to growth, discovery of inner greatness, and what makes us resilient. Grab your helmet and buckle up, people. It's going to be a bumpy ride. But what a ride it will be. Today's guest is Hannah Rose, a reproductive healing specialist, personal trainer, and certified health coach who went through years of health drama before finding her freedom. For 8 years, she has been coaching one-on-one, inspiring women to reconnect to their emotions and shed the stored traumatic stress that is unconsciously stuck in the body, triggering anxiety, depression, burnout, and chronic health syndromes. She educates on the recovering the felt experience of safety in the body and building a strong foundation of health and lifestyle habits, as a body that feels unsafe will resist healing.
I felt very overwhelmed and very, confused and stuck for a long time because I was leaning on the medical system and the medical approach. I know that there is a place for them in terms of, accidents and emergencies and reconstruction. But in terms of chronic dis-ease, what I always like to tell my clients and anyone that I speak to in this capacity is the body doesn't speak English. The language of the body is symptoms. And that is how the body speaks to us to say, slow down, pay more attention to me. I need more care. I need more love. I need more understanding. Because let's face it, when we go to school, when we grow up, we're not really taught anything about how to self-care. We're not really taught all of these gems that we need to know about our body. So, we grow up quite disconnected to that part of ourselves, So when we do rely on the medical industry, and as you say, it's just about, treating and, fixing the symptom rather than understanding why is it there in the first place.
Right.
It kind of takes you on a road to nowhere, because the root cause was never a medication deficiency. It was always a deficiency in self-connection, love, nutrition, nervous system regulation, all of the things that we really need to know. And I like to see it as, when we are diagnosed, it's kind of an opportunity. I know this is so controversial to say, but in hindsight, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Because even though at the time it felt so awful because I didn't know what I didn't know, it really helped me to ask more questions and to rely on myself and to kind of went back to my roots and my real love of nutrition. And it all made sense to me. The body can heal itself under the right conditions. Literally 98% of the body heals in under a year if you support it correctly.
Right.
And that is literally what happened for me. I literally, everything I did in terms of my nutrition, in terms of working on myself emotionally, it all had a curative effect.
Right.
And I very soon had as I said, the Pcos diagnosis medically lifted from me. And I remember walking out of the hospital laughing, thinking, because you don't really see that around you. We're taught to think that things like PCOS are incurable and there's nothing you can do and you have to live with it. And that is the greatest myth of all. And well, it's true if you stay with the medical approach where they just want to medicate you, operate if necessary. But really, if you understand the body and understand that your cells are programmed to die out and renew all the time, so you can always renew, you can always regenerate, you can always heal yourself. And I experienced that for myself, and I spread the message so loudly, And then I
Yes.
thought, you know what, I want to keep on doing this. I love being a teacher. Like, that's my dharma. That's,
Mhm.
and I just kind of put my all into that. And it's been 8 years. So for
That's so
me, it
wonderful.
was essentially plant-based living foods with a very high focus on fruit, which seems to be quite controversial today because we are kind of conditioned to have a fear of fruit. But
Mhm.
the thing is, the first thing I learned, and the first thing that kind of that light bulb went off for me, is the brain and the body run on glucose. And the
Mm.
food that has the richest source of glucose is fruit. And when I had all my health issues, when I was literally starving for energy, just trying to have energy, trying to feel aligned and in my body, it didn't quite happen because I was having all these foods that didn't align with my nature. And so when I started to eat more fruit, it just gave me the most gratitude I've ever had for food in my life, for Mother Nature. So I had this high focus on fruit, vegetables, grains, beans, pulses, and yes, and I that took me down the veganism road. I've done
Mhm.
that for the last 10 years. So it became, I kind of tried to keep them separate. Like, I don't want to ever teach that a vegan diet is what is healing and supportive, because you can have cookies and noodles and call yourself vegan. For me,
And what are your thoughts on animals? Were they created for us to eat them?
oh gosh, definitely not. I think
Mhm.
they were created with us here.
Mhm.
It's interesting because one thing that I kind of thought to myself is, okay, so animals eat the grass or the plants, whatever it is they're eating, and then we eat the animals to get the nutrients. Why
Mhm.
don't I just go around the middleman and eat that,
Right.
and just leave them alone? Whether that be, like how we eat like fish oil, because
Mhm.
we recognize that there's omega-3s, or the fish eat the algae in the sea or the seaweed, so I just go around the fish and I eat the seaweed, the
That
dulse,
totally makes sense. Yes.
you know it's all these things that, so it's all just a bit of a remembrance. you know
Mm. Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
I always like to say to my clients, I'm not teaching you anything, I'm helping you remember.
You talk about the body that feels unsafe
Mm.
won't be healed. Tell me a little bit about that.
Okay, I mean, this is obviously, apart from the nutrition, this is my favorite area. And
Mhm.
I would say this is about 90% of the work that I do with women, which is the emotional side.
Mhm.
We can eat the best food in the world, but until we feel safe in our body, that food can only take us so far. And what I mean by that is, we've all had a childhood, we've all had an upbringing where we have had trauma.
Mhm.
And when I say trauma, I don't, it's often that, people just think trauma is these big T, abuse, war, you know, but it's also the disapproval, not feeling like you belong, feeling the rejection, having a job that pushes you beyond your body's natural levels of energy and rhythms, or being at school, studying and pushing yourself as well. And there are so many to name. Relationships
Yes.
that we have in our life, we could be in a job that doesn't align with us, we could be in a relationship that doesn't align with us. You know it's all these things that our body basically sees as a threat. you
Mhm.
know and when our body holds on to that chronic stress, that is another way to say, nervous system dysregulation. And because then we end up living in these stress responses, the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and we all, have our different home away from home. So we all, some of us tend to run away, some of us tend
Right.
to freeze, and so the whole point about bringing yourself back to safety is actually speaking your truth, really getting to know yourself and understanding what serves me and what doesn't, and breaking through your emotional barriers. Because a lot of the time we are just stuck in these loops, in these patterns, and we're not very conscious of them. You know, it's just women have a 4-week energy cycle, you know, whereas men have a 24-hour energy cycle. And so a man will get up and have energy in the morning and, you know, hormones balanced, and he'll just go throughout his day and his energy will taper throughout the day, and he gets tired at night, and that's it. And the next day, same thing. Whereas a woman, we have a 4-week energy cycle. I kind of liken it to the seasons. We have, you know, winter, spring, summer, autumn. And that aligns with, you know, like we have our bleeding phase, which is our winter. Then we go into the spring, where we have more energy after, you know, our bleeding time. And then we go into that summer where our, you know, testosterone is the highest. We can do anything. We can, you know, get all of our work done. And, you know, but then when that week comes before our bleeding